Speaker of the National Assembly, Ms. Thandi Modise, Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Mr. Amos Masondo, Deputy President of the Republic, David Dabete Mambuza, former President Thabo Mbeki and Mrs. Mbeki, former Deputy President Phumzile Mlambo Ngcuka, former Deputy President Baleka Mbete, Chief Justice Mogoeng Mogoeng and Deputy Chief Justice Zondo, and all esteemed members of the judiciary, ministers and deputy ministers, premiers of our provinces, members of the National Assembly, speakers from the various legislatures, members of the National Council of Provinces, the Dean of the European Union region representing the diplomatic corps, distinguished guests and members and fellow South Africans. On this day, 31 years ago, President Nelson Mandela walked out of the gates of Victor Verster prison, a free person, a living embodiment of the resilience and courage of the people of South Africa. His release signaled great hope of better things to come. It actually signaled that the freedom of the people of South Africa was nigh. For nearly 40 million years, an extraordinary ecosystem has existed here at the southernmost tip of our continent. The fynbos, which stretches across the Cape, has among the most distinctive features of any plants that are found on our earth. It can adapt to dry and hot summers and cold and rainy winters. It is wondrous in its diversity. Our national flower, the protea, is a species of the fynbos. When I opened the third National Investment Conference last year, I spoke of the protea's unique properties that in so many ways resembles our national currency. What is most unique and special about the fynbos that we find plentiful here in the Western Cape is that to be sustainable and to survive, the fynbos needs fire. At least once every 20 years, the fynbos must burn at extremely high temperatures to allow the ecosystem to be rejuvenated and to grow afresh. Throughout the summer, the burnt foliage of the fynbos lies desolate, but when the autumn rains return, the seeds explode and germinate, and its life cycle begins all over again. And it displays the splendor and the beauty that we often see when we look at the beautiful sights of the Western Cape. The mountains bloom with new life as plants which once seemed lost and dead grow back even stronger than ever before. We, the people of South Africa, have over the past year experienced a terrible tragedy and hardship. Like a wildfire, that sweeps across the mountains and the mountainous ranges of our country, where the fynbos grows. A deadly pandemic has swept across the world, leaving devastation in its path. And yet, like the hardy fynbos of our native land, we too have proven to be resilient in many, many ways. For three centuries, we were victims as a people of oppression, dispossession, and injustice. And for 3 centuries, we resisted this. The flames of injustice may have scarred us, but they did not consume us or destroy us. The rains of democracy brought rejuvenation to our country, and they also brought the birth of a new nation. We have risen time and time again from the depths of darkness to herald a new dawn and a new day. As we look on the grave damage that this disease, coronavirus, has caused, we know that, like the fynbos, like all those who have walked this land before us, we will rise again. Nearly a year has passed since South Africa saw the first case of the novel coronavirus, COVID-19. Since then, nearly 1.5 million people in our country are known to have been infected with the virus. More than 45,000 people are known to have died. Beyond these statistics lies a human story of tragedy and a human story of pain. There is no family, no community in our land, and no place of work that has not lost someone they knew, someone they worked with, and someone that they loved. It is also a story of courage and resilience. The resilience of the hospital worker who day after day, night after night, goes to work to save lives, knowing that they themselves are at risk of infection. It is a wonderful account of the courage of the police officer, the soldier, the essential worker, the caregiver, and all those on the front line who have kept our country safe, our people fed, and our economy going. It is a story of solidarity, and it is also a story of compassion, of a nation that has stood together to confront COVID-19 in ways not seen since the early days of our democracy. Along the way, as we were struggling with this virus, yes, mistakes were made. Yes, there was a lot of criticism, and it continues. But the fact of the matter is, we, the people of South Africa, have in the main stood together to fight this common enemy. More than anything else, this crisis has revealed the true character of our remarkable nation. It has revealed a spirit of the people who refused to be defeated by a virus. It is this South African spirit that must drive our resolve to build a new and more equal economy and a better and more just society. The year ahead must be a time for change, for progress, and also for rebirth. It must be a year in which we rise as a people, and we do things that are going to make us rise. This is no ordinary year. and this is no ordinary State of the Nation address. I will therefore focus this evening on the foremost overriding priorities that we have for 2021. They are not many, but they are focused. First, we must defeat the coronavirus pandemic. That is primary in everything that we have to do as a nation. And second, we must accelerate our economic recovery. Third, we must implement economic reforms to create sustainable jobs and drive inclusive growth. And finally, and not leaving many other things aside, but these are the key ones. And finally, we must fight corruption and strengthen the state that has been weakened. In the coming weeks, we will address other important elements of the government's program for the year as we move on. Fundamental to our nation's recovery is an unrelenting and comprehensive response to overcome the virus. South Africa has just emerged from the second wave of infections since COVID-19 arrived in our shores in March of last year. Driven by a new variant of the virus, this second wave was more severe and it cost many more lives than the first wave. Nevertheless, the human cost could have been far greater had we not moved quickly to restrict movement as well as activity, had we not prepared our health facilities, and had South Africans not observed the basic protocols of health, the devastation caused by the virus could have been far, far worse. This year, we must do everything in our means to contain and overcome the pandemic. This means intensifying our prevention, all the prevention efforts, and strengthening our health system. It also means that we must undertake a massive vaccination program to save lives and dramatically reduce infections across the entire population. Earlier this week, we were informed that one of the vaccines that we had procured, the AstraZeneca vaccine, offers minimal protection from mild to moderate infection by the new variant known as 501Y.V2. This is according to early findings of a study by our scientists and researchers. We applaud these scientists, and we really have outstanding scientists in our country. We applaud them for leading this research and providing new evidence that is vital for guiding our response to this pandemic. Since this variant is now the dominant variant in our country, these findings have significant implications for the pace, the design, as well as the sequencing of our vaccination program. While it should not delay the start of the vaccination program by much, it will affect the choice of vaccines and the manner of their deployment. The first phase of our vaccination program, which is targeted at health and other frontline workers, will now use the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which has been shown to be effective against 501Y. We have secured 9 million doses of Johnson & Johnson vaccine. The first batch of some 80,000 doses will arrive in the country next week. Further consignments will arrive over the next 4 weeks, totaling 500,000 Johnson & Johnson vaccines. All provinces have already rolled out their plans to enable the first vaccines to be administered. The Deputy President, David Mabuza, is leading an interministerial committee that is overseeing this massive rollout. I wish to thank our provinces for their level of preparedness for this massive undertaking that we are about to embark upon. In addition, we have secured 12 million vaccines from the COVAX facility. This will be complementing other vaccines that are available to South Africa through the African Union's Acquisition Task Team facility that we set up. Pfizer has committed 20 million vaccine doses, commencing with deliveries at the end of the first quarter. We are continuing our engagements with all vaccine manufacturers to ensure that we secure sufficient quantities of vaccines that are suitable for our conditions in terms of the variant that we have here. The health and safety of our people remains our paramount concern. All medication imported in South Africa are monitored, they are evaluated, they are investigated and inspected and registered by the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority. We will continue to use the science-driven approach that has served us so well since the earliest days of the pandemic. The success of the vaccination program will rely on active collaboration between all sectors of society. We are greatly encouraged by the active involvement of business, labor, health industry players, as well as medical aid schemes, and in particular, in preparing for the mass vaccination drive that they've been involved in. As we have overcome before, we will overcome this challenge once again, and we will rise. But it is not just this disease that we must defeat. We must overcome poverty, hunger, joblessness, and the inequality in our country. We must overcome a legacy of exclusion and dispossession that continues to impoverish our people and which this pandemic has severely worsened. When I delivered the State of the Nation address in this House last year, none of us could have imagined how within a matter of weeks our country and our world would have changed so dramatically. Our plans had to be adapted in response to a global emergency. The budgets that we had crafted had to be reprioritized, and many programs that we had as government in our various departments, including in our provinces and our local government structures, had to be deferred. Over the past year, South Africa has experienced a sharp decline in growth and a significant increase in unemployment. Poverty is on the rise, inequality is deepening. In the third quarter of 2020, our economy was 6% smaller than it was in the last quarter of 2019. There were 1.7 million fewer people employed in the third quarter of 2020 than there were in the first quarter before the pandemic struck. Our unemployment rate now stands at a staggering 30.8%. As a result of the relief measures that we implemented and the phased reopening of the economy, we expect to see a strong recovery in employment by the end of the year.